Okay, so hello, my name is Rob, and I am a spokesmodel for the 2020 HIV Stops With Me campaign. And I am here to conduct my first ever interview for the campaign, the first ever Where Are They Now interview with a spokesmodel, a former spokesmodel, who is um, a good friend of mine, a brother who's also a sister, who has
Yes.
been an inspiration to many, many folks, including myself, long before I ever fathomed that I would be one of the spokesmodel. So let me introduce Luna Luis Ortiz.
Hello. Hi,
Hey,
Rob.
clap, 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 clap. Yeah, no, I'm a little nervous. This is my first interview for the campaign, but I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. Thank you so much for agreeing to say for saying yes and agreeing to be interviewed by me. You know,
Of
this is
course. This
for
is an
me.
honor for me too.
It's so for me. It's so cathartic. I've told you this before, and I love telling the story of who you are to me and who you have been, to me historically. We met many moons ago when we were just tiny little queens running around the pier in Christopher Street, right? We were in 1988, 1987, 88 when we first met. So I was like 16, 17 at the time. You were actually the first person that I knew that I had ever met that I knew was HIV positive. I didn't actually hear it directly from you. I remember watching a show on PBS and seeing you on national television in a documentary talking about your status, and I remember gagging in my living room. And then fast forward, I remember gagging again when I was riding the train and I saw your face plastered all over the subway on that
HIV
beautiful
starts with
picture.
me.
Yes, the HIV Stops With Me campaign. And I remember thinking to myself, at that point, I had already tested positive, and I remember thinking to myself, like, my God, that queen has motherfucking nerve. Oop. I'll say that again. I remember thinking to myself, my God, that queen has nerve. They're gonna have to beat me out for that one. I remember getting on the train and seeing your face on the subway and like just in awe of your bravery, especially at a time um when it wasn't cool. Like, when it wasn't popular, when so many of us were still living in the shadows. So thank you. Thank you for being a pioneer. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for being a light in a world that can be so dark, especially historically with all of the stigma and the shame that can be associated with HIV and AIDS, and that we try every day as a campaign and as people living with HIV that we try to fight back and push back against.
Mm.
So you're an artist, you're an HIV activist, you're a
Mhm.
person living with HIV, you are a well-renowned personality, a known, an icon, a legend in the ballroom scene. Tell us a little bit more about you. Who is Luna Luis Ortiz, and who was Luna Luis Ortiz, the HIV Stops With Me campaign spokesmodel?
Okay. Well, thank you for all those wonderful words. And again, I'm excited to be here and honored that, you picked me to interview. So that's really sweet. And of course, we know each other all these years. You basically said my intro, actually. I am an artist. Um, Funny enough, I became an artist after I became infected. So it was through art that I would express myself. And so from that point on, that's when art became very important for me. And it still is. Um, in 2005, I auditioned or wanted to be a part of this campaign. I saw an ad and then I showed up. I did my part, and then I was chosen to be one of the first few. I think it was like five of us, six of us, for New York City. It was the first time that HIV Stops With Me started campaign here in New York. I think they were in upstate New York, but they weren't in the city, and we were the first five. The other folks were great. They were nice people, and it was fun hanging out with them and doing workshops and talking and doing, videos and things like that with them. And that was 2005 when I joined the HIV Starts With Me family.
That's and so what was tell me what how long were you with the campaign?
Well, I was only a part of it through 3 phases. So it was like the first one, which was the debut. The second one was the one that I call the dark era, and then the third one was the one with my sister, which the family loved that one. My mother has a copy. My brother, everybody framed it. So it's in every time I go to somebody's house in the family, they have it framed because it's a nice portrait of my sister and I.
It's a it's a beautiful portrait. I think knowing you and knowing your sister Dolly, and knowing the kinship that you guys share, the love that you guys have for each other. I think it really, whoever photographed the picture really captured, I think, the love between you and your sister, but particularly the love that your sister has for you.
And I think that's what that part of the campaign was supposed to be. Was we were supposed to select somebody who supported us through our process, and so my sister was the first person that was very supportive as a gay man, but also as somebody who was living with HIV. Never ever was I judged or looked differently at, and it was just she was very supportive, so I selected her, and it was a nice concept.
So you have served as an inspiration for me and for many others. And I know that there have been other HIV Stops With Me campaigns, spokesmodels that came before me that you are connected to, that you have been a mentor to, an influence to. It took me a really long time, as a spoken word artist, because I'm an artist too, to even write about my HIV status. I never dreamed that I would be, in this campaign in such a public way in regards to my status. You have inspired me. Who inspired you all those years ago when you first tested positive and you first started talking publicly about your status?
Hmm. Um, I would say my sister. Um, but that was at home. See, the story is complicated because I was infected in '86, and then they said I would die in 2 years. So I was 14 at the time, but I would have died at 16. So I was very young dealing with all of this. So I was at home. It wasn't until '88 that I went down to the village, and that's where I experienced almost like when the house landed in Oz and everything was in black and white, and then she opened the door, it was in full color. That
Yeah.
is the beginnings of me finding the nerve to be open. Because in my head, I looked at it, my very young head. um, I was, what, 17 at the time. And so for me, it was the transition of like, it was a secret from 14 to 16. And then when I started hanging out in the village and being around other gay folks, it opened the door for me. And I was just, sharing my status with everybody. One of the first people that was very supportive at that very time was my friend Wade Hanley. And he was very loving and supportive. He was almost like a motherly figure to me.
Mm.
And he was the reason why I started to hang out in the village. I would have never discovered it if I did, it would have been much later. I probably would have, the destiny would have been different. I think I was at the right time, right place at the right time. And it was Hedrick Martin. And it was the folks at Hedrick Martin who inspired me, all the staff people that were there. And at the time, it was called IPOG, the Institute for the Protection of Gay and Lesbian Youth. But the teacher at Harvey Milk, Fred, Mr. G, we call him. He was a total inspiration. And then later, of course, my gay father, Hector Extravaganza, who um, himself wasn't very open, but he gave me the support behind the scenes because he wasn't at that time open about his own status. It was much, much years later that he, you know, started to like be open about his. But again, it was because he was watching me, and in his head, he was like, if this kid could be so open, then why is it that I can't be open? So, so that's the story with, the folks that I was inspired with early on.
Luna, and that's why I keep throwing like flowers at your feet, because you have done that for so many of us, and I was going to say, in my head, I would say, before you said it, I was thinking like, yes, Hector was offering you the support behind the scenes, and there were things that you knew that other people weren't privy to. But I would venture to say that you inspired Hector too, to come out and be public, about his status.
Mhm.
How did you come to the campaign? How were you introduced to the campaign? Oh, you said you auditioned for it.
Yeah, because I think they were doing like they were looking for people, and um I was working at Hedrick Martin at the time, and the auditions, I think I'm calling them audition, but I guess they were auditions, right? They were selecting people from the community, and you had to come in, and they photographed you, and you told your story. It was at GMAC when it was on 24th Street,
Hmm.
and yeah, and I remember I came up there, and I had that that young spirit of mine with the bouncy, and I just I shined, and I was
And that
selected.
face, honey, that face.
And I was so excited, but it was also because I was very comfortable in my own skin, and
Right.
that's why in the first campaign they asked what you want. I've, how was it they said it? You know how they do a quote. So they asked, "What do you believe in?" And I said, "I believe in myself because I was the one that always had the nerve. I don't know what was in me to be so young and so open about my status, and not only open to just my community, but I was open to the world because of the MTVs, the VH1s, the PBS, the Channel 7, Channel 42, 41, and all of that. So all of that just came together, and so yeah, that's how it was, and it was because I believed in what I was doing."
What do you think that you brought to the campaign, and what do you think the campaign gave to you?
Um, so what did the
What did you bring to the campaign that was unique to everybody else?
I think what I brought to the campaign, it was my energy. They needed somebody who had the nerve to be open because you needed to be open. I mean, to be in a campaign like that and be on the subway with millions of folks in New York are gonna see it. You had to be ready in your own skin.
Hmm.
You needed to be sure that this is what you wanted to do. And a lot of people sometimes they want the attention, but they're not ready for the storm afterwards. And so for me, I think when I walked in there and that audition, I think I gave that already because I was already comfortable. I auditioned from it, for something like this for years before the campaign actually came up. And I was already doing the work before I got into the campaign. So I think what I did is that I brought a lot of visibility to the campaign because it was new and a lot of people didn't really know about it, or at that time there was a lot of things on the subway. But I think when you see a familiar face on New Yorker
Mm.
and you know this face from certain things, I think that's what I did for the campaign in terms of like visibility. And I
What
think
did the campaign give
what
to
it did
you?
for me,
Yeah.
I think that it reminded me of the importance of why we need to do the work, why we need to tell our stories. And I think the campaign, what did they do for me though? That's actually hard because at that time, it wasn't as intense as the way currently, well, the last few folks, the last few campaigns that you guys have been a part of. I think you guys have more things to do than I did in my, because we didn't have the videos, and we didn't have the internet stuff to work with like that. It was mainly on the subway. Occasionally, whenever we did public speaking or something like that, we would bring our materials, which would be the posters and the palm cards.
Hmm.
So I think it just gave me another platform almost. I guess that's what, yeah, because thinking about it, I was doing the MTVs and all of that. Fine, the rest of the world was looking at that. But I think having the campaign sort of gave me this sort of other different sort of platform, if that makes sense, and where it was more, oh, what's the word? When you're, because you're face to face now with the people. Um, Dang, I forgot the word. There's a word for it.
Well,
Anyway,
it sounds like it made you more accessible, right? So there's,
yes,
when you're doing the MTVs and all the other stuff, there's sort of like,
this person can't be real.
well, yeah, there's a detachment,
Right.
right? And I think it sounds to me like it really gave you more like accessibility. It made you more accessible, like as a real person, not just someone on TV. But yes, there's that person on the subway, but that's also somebody I know, and to me, I know, because I knew you were doing your thing, but for me, it was really seeing your face on the subway. Like everyone could see you,
No, yeah.
anyone could see you, right?
That's why I said you had to be ready for that.
Right. This is actually my second year on the campaign, but the first year I wasn't ready, and the box with the campaign materials showed up to my house, and I wasn't here to receive it. So my neighbor took it in, and I get a call from my neighbor at work, and she's like, "Vecino, I have a box for you here. Tengo una caja que te llegó." So I was like, "Okay, I'll come and get it after work." And when I went and I knocked on her door, when I got home, I get this box with the palm card on the picture, and it says, I am you, HIV, something, something, something. And I'm like, "Oh my God." I call Sheldon and I'm gagging. I'm like, "Oh my God, my neighbor got the box. She knows my status. Now everybody's gonna know my status." And Sheldon was like, "You're gonna be on the trains, right? You're gonna be potentially on Billboard." And I was like, "Oh my God." This year, this time around, like I had a year to settle into it, and I feel like, I'm grateful that I was given the opportunity to come back a second year, because I really feel like okay, like I'm grabbing this bull by its horns. And I think what the campaign has given me is an opportunity to reclaim, like, to turn that shame inside out and reclaim my dignity. And HIV, I think the most profound thing for me is that my HIV status is no longer a weapon that can be used to harm me. And I know that there have been times where HIV has been a weapon. It's been something that you can use to hurt me. It's been something that you can use to embarrass me. It's been something, that if that it's been a reason for people to abandon me. And at this point, the way that I feel about it is like it's 2020. Like, with everything that's going on in the world right now, if my HIV status is the thing that's going to be the, like, make or break our relationship, then bye. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, and actually the love that I've gotten from my neighbors, because they see me on the subway, my ad is so visible this year. And like every single day, like to this day, I have like 4, 5, 6 messages from people a day, if not more, like tagging me, texting
Hmm.
me, and I'm so grateful. I
Yeah.
call it the campaign is the gift that keeps on giving, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
But what's interesting
how
too is that you have social media. We didn't have social media when I was doing it. So the campaign is even bigger now. Like more people could see it because of that reason. So
So in line with that, for you, who do you feel, as Luna, the spokesmodel, who was your target audience? And being that you didn't have social media and all of that when you were doing it, how did you reach that audience?
We didn't have target audience. So what happened is I think all of our stories spoke true to everyone. So we were assigned to do specific groups at various, health fairs and things like that. But it wasn't the way, like I said, you guys have it more intense than like than we did. Because really it was about you taking your materials and you sharing it to wherever you were going. So I would use mine. I would bring my posters and my palm cards because it was like little cards about business palm like card size. Then there was the other one that was about a palm card size, a 4x5 or whatever the number is, 4x6, and then the poster. And so I would take those with me whenever I was doing any form of outreach. And I was working at Hedrick Martin, so of course I had them all on the walls. I would get them to the kids. My target for myself, because I work with young people all the time since day one, has been working, and I guess it would have been the young folks. My poster was for, and I would also use the poster for when I was competing at balls. I would take the poster and the flyers and put them out on the tables at balls. So yeah, that's how it was for us. We didn't have that much assignments except to take it into your own, because I think at the time it was really about who you knew. So it was your networks. It wasn't like, oh, go, this is why, you are the Latin one, so go hit the Latin people. It wasn't like that. It was really more about take this back to your community, whatever it is, and just share it and put it everywhere. So that's kind of what we were doing at the time.
Is there a moment that sticks out for you? Like, was there a moment, like what, if there's like a story or a moment or an interaction that you could share about your experience with the campaign, what is there one that sticks out for you?
I mean,
Maybe.
there's a few, but I remember at a ball, that one sticks to me the most because it's funny, but it's also like it's like the nerve, right? So okay, so I will say that I may not have been the first person in ballroom who was open about their status, but I think I was the first to be doing it the way I was doing it. And so a lot of people looked at what I was doing as shocking, actually, which is kind of funny, but it was the sign of the times, right? So I remember the poster actually in 2005. There was a category for it was a $5,000 face category. It was open to all, and you were supposed to come with photographs and this whole production. And so I selected my kids to go up there with the posters as my pictures to hand them to the judges, and that was supposed to represent me, the face, Luna. Then I was supposed to come out from the back in my Club Kid effect. And so what's funny is that a lot of people later were like, they were kind of like surprised. They were like, you just have nerve. Like, why you even use that poster? And I was like, well, you were asking for photos, and it was supposed to represent who you are. And because I'm, a spokesperson, so I'm presenting myself with the poster. So it was just this sort of like a lot of people celebrated it, and a lot of people were like sort of surprised and shocked about it, which I found kind of interesting. Um, and so yeah, so that story sticks to me all the time because of the how people reacted. And of course I have other stories like people whispering to me on the street, thank you, and they will come up and they will reveal their status to me. I have no idea who these folks were, but they would reveal their status to me, and they were whispering, and they still weren't open about it to anyone, but they wanted to share it with me. So I was almost like this open gate for people to walk through and just share, even if it was just for that, few minutes of like, kudos or like. And then I remember the first person who did that too. It's like somebody standing in the street and they're going like this, looking at me, clapping. And I'm like, so of course, my instinct is to smile. And then I was like, like that face, like what? And they were clapping because of the poster, because they said it. They were like, "Oh no, I love the, what you do, the work. I saw the poster, blah blah." So a lot of people were detached, and a lot of people were attached to this campaign. For me, I think all the little stories that I could possibly say, and share, uh, they're all similar in that people were secretly, and this is 2005, people were secretly applauding and saying thank you because they weren't open. And I hope that there were people that saw that campaign that are now a part of the campaign for the last few, however long it's been out. um because that would be a beautiful thing. I hope somebody that's in the campaign would, and after seeing this video, will come and say, hey, it's because I was that person that was clapping, or I was that person, because it would be nice. It would be a full circle for me to see that. But anyway.
Yeah. Um,
Oh, and
amazing.
sometimes people would think that I was a model because of the ad. So they didn't even think. They would first, sometimes people would ask, are you a model for that HIV thing on the train or wherever they saw it? And I'm like, no, it's my story. They didn't believe that the story was real because they thought that I was modeling like it wasn't a real thing. So I also had that too, where people thought that it was just fake people, models, trying to act like they had HIV. But I was like, no, I really
Right,
have
like
HIV.
you were selling a product or something. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
So.
it's right. Um, well, yeah, so that's a very profound story, Luna, because I think that it really speaks to, you know, both sides of that coin, right? The people that are willing to embrace the message and the nerve and the transparency and the authenticity. I think that I think ballroom is in the categories we try to create illusions and fantasy and flawlessness, but you were able to bring that and bring effects, but still be you and still have your truth shine through. And I think that, sometimes when somebody is not ready to share their truth in that capacity, they will chop it. They will chop your truth because they're not ready to expose their own. And so I think that anyone who reacted negatively to that, the people that didn't see it, is because they're not ready to see themselves.
Mhm.
And so I think as spokesmodels, that's what we do, is we are light bearers, right? We shine light where there is darkness. And oftentimes when it comes to people's HIV status, it's shrouded in darkness.
Mhm.
And so the nerve of you to bring the light, you know what I'm saying? The nerve of you to bring the light. And so, and yeah, and so, I wasn't at that ball. I didn't have that experience with you. But again, like, I don't know that I would be a spokesmodel today if it wasn't for you. You know, it took me 20 years, if not longer, to get to that point where you were at the very beginning. So you definitely paved the way for me, you know. Um, but yeah, so I guess maybe in closing, um, what closing thoughts do you have? I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask was, you know, would you return as a spokesmodel at some point if you were asked to return, or if you were given the opportunity? And what if you were to do that? What would your message be now? What would your message, as staying true to Luna, all of your many aspects, all of your many facets, what would your message, what would your platform be now? And
Mhm.
and how would you use the campaign to further that?
Um, I think that it depends. It depends if I will return. I don't know. I believe in other folks should have this opportunity because it's a beautiful thing to be free, and I think that being a part of the campaign is freedom. for yourself and for others. And so I think that the more people that do it, that it would be wonderful if we could get everybody who has HIV in New York to be a part of the campaign. But I think that if I were to be a part of it again, I think that my message would be about thriving. I mean, I've been living with this since I was 14. I'm almost 50. And
You were told 2 years, and look at you. Look at you. I was told 7. I was told 7 when I
seven
tested.
what? Ah,
I was given a good 7 years, is what I was told.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And and through all these years, all of my experiences, all of that, I would bring that to the campaign. It would be about thriving, about being aging with AIDS. A lot of people don't talk about the elder sexuals. Um, and so I think that would be my message. It would be about targeting people that are in that sort of bridge, because I'm not young, but I'm not 80. So what about those people that are like, men that are in their 40s about to be 50, and the life changes. Is this HIV or is this age? You know what I mean? So so
Yeah.
sometimes I could, I could have a pain somewhere. A hip hurts, and you don't know what it is. And so we're living in different times because more of us are living longer. And so i
Yes.
think i think I would represent that population of people that are the in-betweeners, is what I call it. And so that's what I would be: a thriving in-betweener. Yeah.
Is there a closing message that you would like to leave us with? Maybe some closing words.
i think that I think that folks that are part of the campaign are there for a reason. We're all selected for whatever um, reason they were selected, because of course, I mean, I don't know how they select them now, but I know how they did when in my time. So I feel that if you were the chosen one, it was because you were the chosen one. And I think that people should be, share their story. And because I think this is for the models, but I could just say a message. Which one you want? For the models? You want me to say something for the models, or you want me to say something for the world?
Both. Both.
Because I'm sort of in. I would say for the models to just, their story is going to open many doors. And I think that a lot of people are going to learn so much from that. And it's going to, help a lot of people want to be open about their status. And the more of us that are open, the better, right? Less stigma in the world. And I think for the rest of the world, get tested. I don't know. I don't know what I want to say to the rest of the world. Oh, my phone is talking to me. He said, I don't understand that. Shady phones. Yeah.
What do you want to say to perhaps somebody that comes across this video, that is maybe newly diagnosed or has been living with the virus for years, and is still in a place where they are, not comfortable with sharing their status, and like still it still puts them through a lot of changes.
Um, but they want to be open, or they're just afraid to be open?
Just, I guess, just, yeah, maybe the last thing from their mind is about being,
Well,
like, they can't even think about being in a campaign like this.
you have to be ready for a campaign like this. But I think that if you're not ready for a campaign like this, I would suggest you don't do a campaign like this,
Hmm.
because it's in your face.
Right.
I mean, I think that's what one of the wonderful things about the campaign is, that it's in your face, literally
Hmm.
on the subway, everywhere. And I won't suggest somebody who's newly diagnosed that's not ready for this type of attention.
Right.
And somebody who's been living with it for a while, come on, share your story, because you did so much to, how do you get from, do you live with HIV for so long? That could be the story for someone who just learned their status, and they could look at you for, as a mentor, somebody that they could look up to, because it's not easy living with HIV in many levels. And so, yeah, I think your story will help somebody, you know, and the experience of all of that, because I mean, you know, my AIDS is from, I have a friend that calls my HIV, my AIDS, vintage AIDS. And so, because it's, you
Classic.
know, classic AIDS, because it's, you know, it's 80s, you know. And so imagine that knowledge from the 80s, 90s, 2000s and on that you could bring to a campaign, you know. So I would tell somebody who's been living with it for a long time to share their story, because somebody's going to get something out of it, you know,
Absolutely.
different generations.
Absolutely.
So
All right, Luna. Well, I just want to thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this interview.
you're welcome.
And also, again, thank you for lighting the way, for paving the way, for being you. And I know that you're still actively doing the work in many ways. Um,
Well,
and
I'm still HIV starts with me.